What's up everyone, Sly1 here, back with another guide, this time talking about Hippocampus Savage, also known as P2S. And I have to say, honestly, this was probably one of my favorite boss fights, just mostly because of what Square Enix can do when they don't really have to tailor a boss to melee and positionals. They have a lot more sort of creative freedom with a boss's mechanics and utilizing both a full and partial room. And, just all of the things that they were able to do with this fight, I found it really fun to actually prog on. So starting off, let's talk about our tanks. The tanking situation, if you have a warrior, makes life a lot easier for you just because of that short invulnerability for them. If you don't, however, you're going to need to sort of either double stack your tanks in order to take the tank buster, since it is a double tank buster hit, or, just if you do have a warrior, do like what we did here and make either your longer cooldown, whether that be a paladin or a gunbreaker, take the first tank buster, and then you'll share one somewhere in the middle of the fight, and then you can then take the final one before you kill the boss. But let's look at this cast bar that he's doing right here called Murky Depths. Now, this is one of two major AoEs the healers are going to need to pay attention to, but you as the tank will have some responsibility to help them out as well. Now, personally, I used Reprisal for every Murky Depths, and then I also used my Heart of Light for every Sewage Deluge, which is a hard-hitting AoE that you will see here in a little while. Whether you are a warrior or whatever, you can still use Reprisal on the first one and then like a Shake It Off. But that's just my 2 cents on how to help out your raid a little bit from a tank perspective. So right here, you're going to see this tank buster happen on me. Like I said, it's a double impact. You could have both people share this, or you could just invuln it like I did here. We then had our other tank to take the boss, and then I go back to just doing my rotation. So right here is Sewage Deluge. This is the big hitting spell that I throw my Heart of Light for. We had our warrior actually throw Shake It Off and our healer through shields. It still brought us down to about 50% there. As far as transitioning here, we sort of base everything on where the unsafe platform is. As you can see, the arena is starting to glow at this point. That means water is going to fill it, and one of those squares is also lit up on the left side of the screen under our party frames up here. That one will have water on it as well. So we're sort of positioning ourselves directly across from it, allowing us to move both left or right and have some freedom here. This next mechanic will involve two variations of it. Now, the bottom body here has a yellow arrow on it. Now that will be a skinny beam that goes across the room in that pattern. It basically fits in between the squares for the most part. It sort of spills a little bit over, so you may want to sort of favor a little bit away from that, but mostly it's just a skinny beam. Now the next thing you need to pay attention to is the head that's floating above him. Now the arrow that is pointing is not always the direction that it will beam. You need to pay attention to the cast bar here. It is either going to be spoken cataract or winged cataract. Spoken obviously will come from his mouth, and that is the way that the arrow is facing, is his mouth here. So he's going to breathe sort of away from us already, but if this had been a winged, where his wings are on the back of his head, then that would be sort of blasting towards this 3 marker, and we would need to move. But luckily this is spoken. You're going to see how we sort of position ourselves a little bit to sort of avoid this skinny beam, and then the head is going to breathe away from us here. So always sort of favor to be parallel to that yellow line just to make sure you don't get clipped, get a damage down. The next ability that follows here is going to be this Coherence tank tether. Now, either tank could just take this away from the entire raid, because essentially what happens is whenever this explodes, it does proximity damage to the group. I would recommend using a 30% if you're the tank right here. Basically what happens is head smashes down on you. You see that it does about 60,000 damage to me. Luckily, I had X-Cog and my Heart of Corundum, so I healed myself pretty much back up to full. But following this, what happens is the raid group across from me that stayed on that platform is now going to take a massive beam. But the first target that beam hits takes more damage than the rest of them. You always need your tank to be the frontmost target of this beam coming up right here, which our warrior was luckily right in the front of that. Everyone else took a huge chunk of damage, but if that tank was not that primary target, you probably would have had somebody else take it and they would have died for sure. Right there, another Murky Depths, threw a Reprisal on it to sort of mitigate some of that damage. Now this next ability here, Omnimus Bubbling. This is where you're going to want to split your raid up into light parties. So we actually chose to do one tank, one healer with both melee, and then the other tank healer with both of the ranged characters. And essentially, we need to wait for the boss to turn a direction, and we chose to make our melee run farther. So we waited for the boss to turn here. He turned towards this D marker in the corner. So we're going to have the light party with the melee run to the farthest side of the room over at that other purple marker there, which I believe is 4. And then the ranged group is only going to need to move over here to 3. So that way we are opposites of where they are, allowing the explosions to hit us and not clip each other. But it also allows a lot of uptime for your range. They don't have to worry. They just move a little bit and then cast. These AoEs are focused on the healers directly, and you possibly could have one of the groups, whether that be the melee or the ranged, go to that actual center where this boss is about to leap to. But we decided, as far as playing it safe, to just not clip each other with this water ball mechanic that hits us right there. You know, you could greed a little bit, maybe move a little bit less, but overall, there's no reason not to just play it safe here. Now, the boss is going to move back to the center, so you don't really need to worry about trying to move him anywhere. And this next mechanic that follows is called Predatory Avarice. This is going to be where 2 debuffs are going to go out onto the raid group. One will go on a tank, and the other will go on a DPS. Healers, you don't have to worry about this. So, as we pay attention to here, you'll notice up by my mini map over here on the top corner, I have a 22-second debuff on this pause screen here, and through our party frames, it looks like Canera, our Reaper, has the other one. So what's going to happen is we need to sort of get away from our raid group because we're going to drop a ball on ourselves, but we also don't want to run the same direction, or else we're just going to drop the balls on each other and probably kill each other. You have plenty of time to resolve this, and there's actually this mechanic that happens in between that. There should be I believe this part right here, yes. So here's another one of those beams where you're going to have the skinny beam sort of go through 1 and 3. It's going to clip a little bit of our platform, so we're going to need to back up a bit if we're staying here. But unfortunately, we are not staying here. So the head up above is pointing its arrow the other direction towards the 4 marker here. But the cast bar says Winged Cataract. So essentially that means that his wings are going to happen, so it's going to go behind him towards this 2 marker that we are already on this side of the room. So we're going to need to run over here and get to a safe position, sort of greed a little bit more towards this 4 marker if you're if you're melee here, so you don't get clipped. And now we need to resolve this debuff. It happens pretty quickly here, but what we did is we left most of our raid group at that marker that was safe and had the tank run to the right and had the DPS run to the left. So you can see I'm over here, Canera is in the back by C, water droplets fall. Meanwhile, the entire raid took a giant soaking puddle right there that they had to, or water droplet, whatever you want to call it, that they all had to sort of share the damage on. So that's really important that both of those debuff targets are away from everyone and the raid is stacked together there. Overall, just it's going to be a lot of damage going out in this fight entirely, so healers, get comfortable. Channeling Flow. This was a really fun mechanic that I actually really enjoyed. We all get little sliding arrows, and basically you just need to sort of be across the room with a partner. And the problem with it is if you aren't far enough apart whenever this ends and you slide towards each other, it'll actually kill you. So for this particular one, we decided to sort of just stand back behind the grates. This is guaranteed enough space to where everyone can sort of slide and not, kill each other when they hit each other. If you're feeling a little bit greedy, you can have some people like our Reaper over here behind the C marker. If you see him, he's sort of greeting in melee and he's on the grate, but the person across the room from him is our ranged red mage, and he's sort of compensating for that distance by backing up a little bit further. That way melee can have uptime. I would probably just play it safe again. If this is your progress boss, just play it safe. Everyone get behind the grates. You'll have more than enough room. The tank that does currently have the boss after this slide, you're going to need to pop maybe a cooldown before the slide happens or something, because you'll end up pretty low after this happens. Here's another double impact. Our warrior has home gang for this. No big deal. And it looks like my bullhead's at about half cooldown here. Murky Depths AoE, throwing a reprisal. Looks like we had a feint thrown on the boss too. And then Let's see. Following that, I'm pretty sure we're going to have a Sewage Deluge coming up soon. They usually always happen pretty close together. There it is. There's the Sewage Deluge. So again, Heart of Light for this one. I'm throwing a nice little cooldown. I think we had to shake it off as well. So right there, unsafe platform right next to us. As you know, our default positions are going to be across the room for a moment, so we ran all the way over here. Now this one is Shockwave, this cast bar right here. This is him leaping to a platform, and you have to knock back immunity. Also, I did forget to mention, my fault on this, but earlier, whenever you guys were in your healer groups and he leaps to a corner, he's also doing a shockwave there. So as you run to your positions, whether you're in that first light party or the second light party, you also need to use your knockback immunity for that. It will come up in time for this, so no big deal. But unlike that one, this one you don't really have to spread into light parties or anything. He's just sort of facing this C corner, and we can just run to 3, that way melee can still hit him. Just make sure you use your knockback immunities here, and you won't get pushed out into the death wall. So right there, no one got pushed back, luckily. And here we have our Campus Harmona. This is probably one of the biggest mechanics that a lot of groups will struggle with early on, but it has a few ways of resolving itself. A few different ways to sort of tell what you have, I guess, is the best way to look at it. Because we're all sort of clustered up, it's really hard to see exactly, but everyone will get a number on their head. It will be 1 through 4 and either be a triangle or a square. The people that had triangles on their head are not tethered to the boss. So there's a couple ways you can obviously tell what you have. You need to look at the number of the shapes, whether that be a triangle or a square that you have. You need to look whether you have a tether to the boss or not. And you can see it obviously would be either purple or blue. So if you have a purple triangle that is not tethered to a boss, we had those players just run to the markers that were numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4 and have them stand dead center on that marker. If you have a tether to the boss, however, he is going to be charging back and forth in numerical order. So the way we decided to memorize this was odds are opposite of the boss. So O and O, odds opposite. So we had 1 and 3 go stand on one side of the room, and then 2 and 4 would stand under where the boss currently is right now. Now what happens during this mechanic is he's going to slap his tail at the same time as he charges, or maybe his head's going to leap. Either way, both the numbers are going to get hit at the same time. So 1 and 1 are going to get hit, 2 and 2 are going to get hit, 3 and 3 are going to get hit, 4 and 4 will get hit. The person that is untethered has sort of a big AoE around them, which is why we sort of put them in the middle of these areas. And we utilized the markers. If you see here, we had 2 and 4 running towards this C marker under the boss. Now we needed our number 2 to be slightly in front. Now this is where it gets pretty easy. I mean, it's not, you don't need a ton of space, but let's see if you can see my items. I got a cell phone and a coaster here. So let's say the boss is, you know, over here, and we can put number 2 in front of him, number 4 right behind him, and then the boss resolves, you know, he charges 1, then he charges 2, so 2 just got hit. Now, if 2 gets hit again, he's dead. So you basically just have both your people just move a little bit to where number 4 will be in front. So you have plenty of time in the sequence to where boss will charge 1, then 1 and 3 are going to shift forward and back of each other. That way they don't get hit twice. You'll sort of see it happen here. So here was charge number 1. Number 1 over there also got hit. Charge 2, charge number 3, and charge number 4. Now, if you resolve this correctly, nobody will end up dying. If some people are a little off on the 1, 2, 3, and 4 markers, they may cleave somebody in a corner because that is a big AoE. But that's just something to sort of be aware of. Right after that resolves, this is the tank buster that I ended up sharing with our warrior co-tank, just because Home Gang was not quite ready yet, and mine was not either, so we had to both just pop some major cooldowns and eat this one together away from our raid group. And then, other than that, it was all pie from right here, as far as tank cooldowns are concerned. Here's a Murky Depths AoE, gonna throw a reprisal up. Healers are sort of putting up some absorbs here. And then, right after a Murky Depths, usually you have, again, that Sewage Deluge AoE that happens very shortly after. But actually right here, it looks like a Channeling Overflow. So Channeling Overflow, if you remember the other channeling where you get the arrows that resolve, you slide. You need partners to collide with. What's different about this one is you either have a short arrow or a long arrow. And what I mean by that is your debuff timer. You'll either have, it's like, what is it, 12 to 15 seconds, somewhere in there, like 15 seconds and 30 seconds, something like that. So you'll have a short one or a long one. Now the long ones, what happens to you guys is you more or less get a explosion circle around you first, and you need to be spread for this. If you're a short arrow, you're going to slide into each other first. Now, you can't get hit by one of those explosions that the long people have, or else you get a damage down sort of debuff or whatever. You take extra damage, and then the slide will kill you. So the way we resolve this, you can see here, I have a short arrow, so I'm going to walk over here. I'm greeting a bit of damage, but I know my other warrior here has a long arrow. So you'll see here that these people have explosion circles around them. They are the long debuffs, so they're going to slide after all this is done. But first, I'm going to end up sliding. I need a partner across from me. So we ended up taking our safe corner of the room, have two people stand on that one. See how we're opposite of the unsafe side over here on the right? So two people are there, and then you just need the opposite arrows to slide into them, and we're going to end up meeting right here on this 4 marker that's next to me, and on the 3 marker on the other side. Now, right after you've slid into your partners there, looks like we're about half health. Basically, the same thing's going to happen again, just roles reversed. So I had a short marker first, now I'm going to explode, and then the longer markers are now going to slide into each other. So it's all about just giving each other some room. Basically, you actually have 5 free spaces to be safe for this explosion circle, and only 4 of you will have it. 2 of which are kind of how we are now. There's going to be the unsafe corner of the room, as you see on the right side of the screen. 2 people can be on each side of that. And actually, right there where the boss's head is on the left, 1 person can be up front in the corner of that area as well. So the explosion happens, they then slide, now they're all at about half health. We're going to need to get healed up. Here is another spoken cataract. So spoken would be his mouth. It's forward towards the arrow, which we are directly in the path of right now. So we need to move. So we are hauling butt over here to the other side, trying to get safe. Make sure we don't get cleaved by this. Nearing the end of the fight here at 40%. So we're slowly whittling them down. LB3, I would recommend right around that area. There's our LB3. It's a good time to use it, and you should get another one up near the end of the fight whenever you guys are standing still. So here's another Predatory Avarice, which was the debuffs going out. This one, however, is going to work a little bit differently than the one before. It will still go on 1 tank and 1 DPS. You will see it is on our warrior and our ninja. Now, the way that we decided to divide this one up is there's going to be another spoken or winged avarice thing, whatever the head thing is going to pop up here. So whenever we are getting into position for that, that's when we're going to resolve this. We decided to put our melee in a corner of the room, and then we had the tank sort of greed the line of the beam. So he took his head off. It's on that side of the room. We don't want to be over there. That head's going to just charge right across the room. So that whole side of the room is now unsafe. So now half the room is gone, basically. So now we're stuck with this half of the room. Now he's doing this mechanic right here, winged cataract, meaning behind the arrow is unsafe, so the right half of the room is unsafe. And now he's also doing a beam directly up and down through 2, leaving us with 1 tiny little corner of the room over here by B. So as you can see, we have our warrior right here running towards that room. If you see that little triangle that's under his feet right now, the one that's built into the floor, we sort of use that as your halfway point on knowing where the head beam and stuff is actually going to splice the room. We always found out that the room is sort of a rectangle. So you have more room north and south as a tank for this. So just something to keep in mind there. Always try to have your tanks go like north or south, not greed the wall like that we're on, or else we'll also get hit. Meanwhile, our ninja is running to the back corner over there. So right there, all 3 orbs happened. We had our tank right there on that line, and then our ninja, who's now running here back to us, was in that corner. and then we all took an orb as well. The reason why we had the Warrior Greed that far line is because in case that head were to collide with them, they're just going to get damaged down and probably live, to where if it's the DPS, they're probably going to die. So, again, I know a lot of things happen really fast here. I'm probably going over a lot of these mechanics really, really fast compared to normal, where I stop and explain them. But this is a really hectic fight. It was a damage benchmark early on for a lot of people before gear. And there's just a lot going on. So apologies in advance. May need to rewind and watch some stuff in time again. Next mechanic right here. His head came off again, but this one's also going to work differently. We are going to get circles under our feet. So we need to sort of travel away from the unsafe part for this. To where the other one, where that we just resolved, we avoided the room, the side of the room that the head was on. This time we're going to start where this head is. This head's going to come right down this side of the room towards B. He's doing this sewage eruption, which is dropping circles under our feet. And now we are going to run away from that half of the room where the head is. Now, we did have some people die right here. And what I would like to say is, while you see us traveling on the grate right here, you necessarily don't have to. I mean, if you fall behind the group, just dip outwards or maybe run through the middle or something. You can kind of try to get out quicker. If one person in your group pops sprint, or you guys use like scholar movement speed buff, you're probably going to get a lot of people killed here. So I would highly recommend not doing that. If you all make it through this, you are going to then get a spread mechanic followed by that tank tether. Now, tanks do not panic on this. The tether has plenty of time. Let these spread mechanics sort of resolve themselves here. And then we sort of designated all of our raid group to go to the 1 marker. We had everyone go 1. That way I could then take the tether off of them and run towards 3 and get on the opposite side of the room of them, since it was that proximity base. Now, since they were rezzing and stuff, I threw a couple extra cooldowns for them. Got as far away from them as I possibly could while they were on 1. They're now going to take that beam. Remember, tank in front on that beam every time. Now that we've resolved that, you're going to get only a couple more minor things here. Again, if you have warrior tank right there, home gang. Otherwise, both tanks running there, cooldown, whatever. Murky Depths, dropping a little bit of a cooldown on this. Doing good, still alive. I'm now taunting the boss because there's only going to be one more tank buster for the rest of the fight here from this 19% onward. So I'm just going to have my invuln ready for that. Here's a Sewage Deluge. Going to need to pop some stuff here. Now, some people, I think on Prog, we ended up saving cooldowns for that last Sewage Deluge, just because this next thing is going to hit really, really hard. And there will be a lot of deaths. I think on day 1 of progging this, we ended up using like the tank LB, since we have a limit break 1 right here, just to survive it and see what was after this. But as we figured it out, we could save cooldowns earlier for this specific part. So this is what will kill a lot of people. So don't get super excited that you're near the end of the fight. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a quick one. But what's going to happen is you're going to get the arena filled with water. We are on the opposite side of the unsafe platform. You now have another channeling overflow, which is the arrows that you will slide with. The difference in this one is there is not exploding circles under your feet if you are the long tethers, vice versa if you're the short tethers either. Instead, what happens is the tank tether will happen, and so will the beam. So what's going to happen is the only people that need to move right here are the 2 short numbered arrows that have to collide with this platform at 1 and 2, and the long tank timer, the long tank. And he will be the person that grabs this tether. So I have short. I need to collide with this platform, and the long tank is our warrior up front right there. He is going to get this tank tether. He's going to run really far away from the group so we don't take proximity damage. Everyone else, you will see them. They are all hovered around that B platform because they're getting ready for this next mechanic. Now, what's going to happen is the short arrows are going to slide right here. That tank tether over there is going to then explode, causing some damage right after that. You're going to deal with all of this damage that from the slide half healthing you, then this tank tether explosion, and there will also be this beam right here. So again, make sure that the other tank, the short tank that just slid here, is the frontmost target. I think our healer actually stepped in front of me right there, so he definitely took more damage and died. But once we progged this, we got really excited about figuring that out without the tank LB, and we actually forgot about the long lines, so we all just slid off in the middle of nowhere. But once that happens, we actually got lucky that the 2 people that died on this were the people that had already done their slides. There's the long slides now resolving, and essentially you only have to deal with I think like one more other mechanic right here, and then you're home stretch right now, full on home stretch. You're gonna deal with circles under your feet, which you only have the platform to deal with, but this one's easier because they actually take longer to explode. So we're going to start with the unsafe head side, and then we're just walking around, just casually walking. Those ones way over there are just now exploding. Like, you got tons of time on this one. Here's an Omnimus bubbling. Now, it's really weird to figure this one out sometimes if you guys just start at one area. So that's why if you saw us there, we defaulted back to the across the way from the unsafe side. So now our melee group was going to run far, while the range group is going to run really close right here. Don't forget those knockback communities. You guys would be really mad if that happens. Right after that, I'm taking myself over here into this corner for the double tank buster right here, so I can invuln it. Everyone else is just standing there. You're just in a pure nuke for the boss at this point. He's just going to start spamming out AoEs until you finally hit an AoE in rage, and that's the fight. We got our LB2 right here. We're nuking up the boss. It's the end of it. Home stretch. Wow, that's a really crazy boss fight. It's a long video. This has been almost a 30-minute video just to explain what all is going on in this fight. But it is a really, really well-designed fight, and I had a lot of fun with it. That's more than I can say for how much fun I'm having on P3S, but when we kill that video, I'm sure will be just as long for you guys. So that's P2S. If you haven't already killed it, guys, good luck. If you have already killed it, maybe this will show you something that you didn't pay attention to before. And good luck, get that loot. See you guys next time.